that's very true. The time can be won and lost in that interval between slowing down and getting back up to speed.
And obviously the point being that a more experienced veteran driver can judge it perhaps a little more closely than what one of the younger drivers can. Stay on the accelerator to the last possible second, duck in the pits, make good time, safe time going down pit road, and also accelerate quickly.
Yeah, that's very true. I sat up here today high where I could watch this pit action, and I've seen a lot of them that could have come in the pits and got out a lot faster than they've been doing it. They've lost a lot of time, but I'm not going to tell them that secret.
Well, because of that pit stop, Mario Andretti now falls a lap down, so only 2 cars now in the lead lap. As we look at the point standings in the Kart PPG IndyCar World Series for 1983, Al Unser Sr. is still the leader with 115 points. Teo Fabi is second with 88. Tom Sneva third with 82 points. Then Rick Mears with 71, and Mario Andretti fifth in the point standings with 68. Sixth, Bobby Rahal with 67 points. Al Unser Jr. has 66. Then John Paul Jr. with 59. Pancho Carter with 42. Mike Mosley is 10th in the point standings with 34.
And you get 24 wins, so you can see how Tom Sneva's dropping out today was a big blow to his hopes for the championship. It keeps shaking down. We've had this feeling all year that it's going to come down to be between Al Unser Sr. and Teo Fabi, although if Rick Mears' performance here today is any indication, maybe he can creep back up there. Bob, you know, there's also something about this particular race, the fall race here at Michigan International Speedway, that has been intriguing. In the year since 1968, they have run this race. Nobody has ever repeated. It's not that the attrition has been that high. It's just been something about this race that's been very competitive in most years. There have been just enough new faces to come along, and in all the years going back to 1968, when Ronnie Bucknam won the Memorial race, and by the way, in 1973, Bill Vukovich Jr. won his one and only Indianapolis type car race. There has never been a repeat winner. 12 races, 12 faces, if you will, in the tradition of Talladega. Some of the people who have not won this race, Mike Mosley, John Paul Jr., and Al Unser Jr. Of course, Teo Fabi, his rookie year on the trail, he's never won one here, nor has Kevin Kogan or Pancho Carter.
Rick Mears continues to set the pace here at Michigan International Speedway, and Championship Auto Racing Teams and ESPN present a track fact.
They say that necessity is the mother of invention, and certainly Indianapolis teams are always coming up with some invention to make their race car go just a little faster, and sometimes to help their driver. Now, believe it or not, I'm holding one of those inventions. We have seen drivers on a high-banked racetrack compensating for the G-forces with those tether straps around their shoulder. The helmets sometimes lean a little bit to the left. Well, this team has invented a little metal device that's heavily padded, allowing this driver, Tony Benhausen, to rest his head against here, so that no matter how long the race on a high-banked racetrack, this driver never strains as far as the neck.
The rains we had here earlier at Michigan did not keep the crowd away. They are here in full to enjoy the Detroit News Grand Prix, and ESPN's coverage of the race continues after these messages. From Michigan International Speedway near Brooklyn, Michigan, of the Detroit News Grand Prix, a 200-mile race for Indy cars. The last time that Rick Mears won a race for Indy cars was in August 29th of 1982 at Riverside, California. He is 0 for 12, but looking for victory here this afternoon. He has a 10-second lead on Bobby Rahal with only 15 laps to go.
And if he were to win today, Gordy, what would that make us? Our 8th different winner on the trail in 1983?
8th or 9th, one of the others.
8th winner, right, in 10 races.
There's only been 2 of them that's doubled up all year long. Fabi and Sneva.
So Rick Mears with a rather commanding lead on Bobby. We've been watching Bobby on the racetrack, and he certainly is not running nearly as strong as he did at the start of the race.
No, he's slowing down. There's something wrong with him because Chip and the STP car, they were just together there, and Chip is running away from him right now. So Bobby's definitely having some kind of problem.
Rick Mears going to the inside of Scott Brayton there in turn number 3, going low on the racetrack. And Mears continuing to run low on the track as he approaches Dick Simon coming off of turn number 4 onto the tri-oval. That's the completion of lap number 88, so only 12 laps to go, and only 2 cars on the lead lap. The average speed of the race with only 1 yellow period period. That for a spin involving Jose Legarza, 180.05 miles an hour.
And Mears and Rahal have really put it to the rest of the field in the last 20 green flag laps that we had. And I tell you something, Gordy, I think your track record is in jeopardy. But Mears and Rahal now have a lap on the entire field. Even the third running Teo Fabi and the fourth running Mario Andretti, the fifth running Al Unser Sr., who were at least competitive and in the hunt, so to speak, early on in this race, are now a lap down. So it has funneled down to a Rick Mears, Bobby Rahal race. And I'll tell you something, Gordy, it looks like Rick Mears is in absolute control and command right now.
Well, yes, I definitely think he is. And I don't understand where Teo got a lap down, because he's been running pretty good. The only way that he's got down is slow getting in and out of the pits. I think that's what's really cost him today.
Rick Mears' teammate, Al Unser Sr., is running in 5th position, so it's going to be a good finish for the Penske team here if they can retain those positions. There is Al Unser Sr. headed in to the tri-oval in front of us, crossing the start-finish line. Al Unser raising his hand, it looked like, as he went into turn number 1. At any rate, he's running in 5th position at this point.
Well, if you've never been to the Michigan International Speedway, it really is one of the finest racing facilities and a very exciting racetrack. This, as we look at Al Unser Sr., currently ranked number 1 in the PPG series for 83, also a 3-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. Today is also GE Silicones Day here at the Michigan International Speedway, and the business community has really turned out for this racetrack, particularly in the last couple of years. If you've never been here, we're about midway between the Motor City, Detroit, and I guess you might call it Cereal City, Battle Creek, Michigan, within the southern part of the southern half of the state of Michigan. And it is also very close to one of those beds, one of those roots of the sport of automobile racing, not too very far from where the guy standing next to me at his early jaunts behind the wheel of a race car, a place called Hastings, Michigan, right, Gordy?
Yes, right, and I live in Coldwater now, and I'm only 40 miles down the road from it. And this Michigan International Speedway is probably the most beautiful racing facilities that we have. Roger Penske and his people has taken over, and they've done one terrific job.
Gary Lee in the pit area, continuing to watch the activity from that location. Gary?
I'm standing right now in the Rick Mears pit, where the last pit stop came on lap 69. Now his first pit stop came on lap 32. So according to our calculations, he should have enough fuel. However, it may be close because we have gone green virtually all the way. But as it stands right now, we should have enough fuel on board car number 1 to take him to victory lane.
Well, A.J. Foyt has written a very interesting book that will be released soon as we watch Rick Mears, and he makes comments about several of the current drivers on the CART PPG IndyCar World Series. Larry Newber talked to Al Unser Sr.
Al, this week it was reported from AJ's book that he says you're the most underrated driver, or one of the most underrated. How can you win 3 500-mile races in Indianapolis and be underrated?
Well, I don't know. I appreciate Boyd's compliments and all that of what he said. It makes me feel good coming from somebody like him. So, but I don't know how I'm underrated.
That goes back to the beginning. That was your first ride at Indianapolis in one of his backup cars, was it not?
That it was. If it wasn't for AJ, I probably wouldn't be where I am today because of that ride. It surprises me how it opens the doors, and with somebody like him that believes in somebody and gives him a chance, it helped me.
Al Unser Sr. in 5th position and the current leader in the PPG IndyCar World Series point standings. Rick Mears continues to hold the lead. Last year for this particular race, he started on the pole but wound up in 25th position, dropping out early with an engine problem. So Rick Mears is looking for his first win today in 13 races.
As we watch the man who looks like he has this race in hand, not to put a damper on proceedings, but we would like to make a comment about a couple of incidents we heard about through the news media overnight. This, by the way, is Chet Phillip. We'll come back to Chet in just a moment. We'd like to extend our condolences to the Jerry Carl family, whose son, we understand, Jimmy Carl, was killed in a private airplane crash yesterday, and also to Bill Marble of the United States Auto Club. We had an unconfirmed report that came from some pretty good sources, however, that one of his sons, Bill Marble Jr., was fatally injured. As now we look at Al Unser Jr. in the pits. Bill Marble Jr. was fatally injured in the sprint car last night in Indiana. Al Unser Jr. pulling out of the pit area. It's been another frustrating day for this young Charger, a guy who has run up front seemingly every race this year. As a matter of fact, this is the first one in quite some time that he has not been in the top 5. They had a tough weekend, and the weekend never got better, even up to race day.
Well, it certainly can happen that way to you sometimes, Larry. You know, no matter what you do, you can't correct it. There's some races you have that way, just unfortunately it happens.
And the Penske cars here battling on the racetrack. Rick Mears trying to put Al Unser Sr. 2 laps down as those cars move through turn number 4 here in front of the bleachers and the main grandstand. To the inside of the racetrack is Rick Mears. Outside is Al Unser Sr. And it looks like the Rick is going to put Al Sr. 2 laps down now. So the situation is, with 3 laps to go, the leader, Rick Mears, second place, 11.4 seconds behind, is Bobby Rahal. Third, a lap down, is Teo Fabi. Fourth is Mario Andretti, and fifth is Al Unser Sr. We've had a very clean and safe race to this point. A spin by Jose Legarza up in turn number 3, but no damage to the race car or, of course, to the driver. So we set up now for the final 2 laps of this race as Rick Mears crosses the start-finish line, moving around Al Unser Jr. in front of the main grandstand into turn number 1 again. He's 2 laps away from his first win in 12 races.
And prior to today, Rick's best finishes in 1983 were thirds. He had a couple of them back-to-back, one at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and one at Milwaukee. Back-to-back thirds and back-to-back races. As we now look at the attrition list for this afternoon, Chip Meade making one of his rare IndyCar appearances, dropping out early, along with Chris Neifel. Johnny Rutherford, also one of the first cars out of this race after a very optimistic qualifying run, which saw him set on the outside of row number 1.
And the white flag is being displayed to our leader, Rick Mears. He's on his final go-round of this 2-mile racetrack. We'll watch him negotiate the turns in the back stretch here on the final lap. There are a few cars ahead of him, a little bit of traffic to contend with, but that should give him no particular problem as he moves out of turn number 2 down the back stretch to the inside of the slower cars.
He's got to be thinking about last week when he saw Teo in his mirrors and had a problem driving into another mirror, if you will. This was Roger Mears.
Yeah, he might be thinking about him and his brother for the last lap last week.
And here he comes off of turn number 4. The checkered flag displayed to Rick Mears from Bakersfield, California, the winner of the Detroit News Grand Prix here at Michigan International Speedway. Rick already with that hand up in the air, saluting the crowd as he goes by. Second place, 11 seconds behind, Bobby Rahal from Dublin, Ohio. Finishing third a lap down will be Teo Fabi and then Mario Andretti. So the Penske crew finally comes through with a victory.
Gordy, have you ever had a drought like that went 10, 15 races? That must be like winning your first IndyCar race when you cut one of those off.
Well, definitely. I've had them that long and longer, and I guess Al Unser, you know, for what, 3 or 4 years here, not very long ago, until he got on the Penske team, went through the same thing. And it gets pretty disappointing, but you got to stay out there and keep plugging away, because if you give up, you know, then your team gives up, and there's just no use. So every race, you got to look at it as a new race and give it your best shot.
This was a nice, clean, fast-paced race, just as we had expected. Only 2 cars on the lead lap. It was pretty much a situation where Rick Mears and Bobby Rahal took over and just left everybody else in the dust. Rick Mears moves the car into victory lane, and Gary Lee will be with him to interview him in just a moment. Once again, Rick Mears, the winner of this afternoon's kart race at Michigan, the Detroit News Grand Prix. Victory lane, but today it is Rick Mears in victory lane winning the Detroit News Grand Prix. And the winner's circle interview is brought to you by Castrol Motor Oil, engineered for today's smaller, higher revving engines. Here is Gary Lee.
Rick, first of all, congratulations. We have talked to you before in victory lane. I don't think I have ever seen a bigger grin. It's been a long time coming this season.
Well, I tell you, it has been a long time. I tell you, we're probably running farther back in point stands than we have in the last couple of years, but I tell you what, these guys have worked harder than they've ever worked in their life, and it's all paid off today. They've really busted their butts on the car, and the Pennzoil PC10 was just working beautiful all day long, and they got me in and out. They were just talking about the margin of victory was probably about the margin of how quick our pit stops were over second place, and I got to put it to the guys. They got me in and out of there right when we needed it.
This season for you has been a study in Murphy's Law. If it could go wrong, it would go wrong. And you had to wonder sometime along the line, am I ever going to get back in victory lane?
Well, you know, I wanted that from time to time, but there was really no doubt. With a team like this, you got to be in victory lane every once in a while, and no matter what happens. So, you know, it has been a while coming, but it's all paid off.
But again, it was a sprint race, which meant you had to have good backup in the pit area, and you got it.
Absolutely. Our pits just, like you say, the race can be won or lost in the pits, and I feel we won the race in the pits today. And plus, the Pennzoil car was just working beautiful.
Congratulations, Rick.
Thank you very much.
Rick Mears, winner of today's championship auto racing teams event from Michigan.